Hollow Knight is a game that does everything in its power to make you feel like you are in total control of your character. With fluid movement and responsive controls, it feels like every trial you succeed or fail at is a result of your own doing. Each ability learned throughout complements the one learned before it, and by the end of the game, the tools at your disposal make you appreciate the growth you've experienced along your journey. It's part of why Metroidvanias, and Hollow Knight in particular, feel so rewarding and satisfying to complete. In Hollow Knight's case, a large majority of the abilities you learn serve to improve your combat prowess, with the game giving the player no shortage of formidable enemies to practice them on. To that end, Hollow Knight contains some of the best bosses of any game I've ever played, with no fight being better than the one had with the Nightmare King Grimm. To say that I love this fight is a colossal understatement. I think for each gamer they have different things they value that contribute to a good game. Some enjoy games with loads of customization options so they can make their character and world exactly how they like it. Some want to be mentally stimulated by tricky puzzles and hidden secrets. And others enjoy a compelling narrative above all else, preferring gameplay to be secondary to the story. While all those elements certainly are important, for me personally, I don't think I enjoy anything more in gaming than a good boss fight. For that reason, the Nightmare King Grimm battle is by far my favorite moment in all of Hollow Knight. While the mission that precedes the fight is largely forgettable, and actually somewhat tedious to complete, it is worth it for this rewarding battle you have against the God of Nightmares. This is because of all the many bosses in Hollow Knight, the Nightmare King Grimm has the best balance of fairness and difficulty, making it one of the most satisfying challenges to overcome in the game. In fact, only the Pure Vessel fought at the end of the Pantheon of the Night really compares to the difficulty and sense of accomplishment I found after beating the Nightmare King. One of the things that contributes to why it's so enjoyable to fight Nightmare King Grimm is how the battle reinforces the central theme of progression at the heart of Hollow Knight's core. Throughout the game, your character undergoes a dramatic transformation that sees him evolve from an easily killed, meager vessel to an invincible warrior with an iron will and endless resolve. You are tested repeatedly by tricky platforming and dangerous enemies that force you to sharpen your senses and your skills. Whether through discovering the hidden secrets of Hallownest or defeating the many bosses found throughout, you are always learning and refining your skills in an attempt to become the ultimate knight. This constant sense of progression is reflected perfectly in the struggle against the Nightmare King, as there is no doubt that you will be a different, more experienced player by the end of the exchange. Most begin this battle feeling confident, having just defeated Troopmaster Grimm a little before, but are swiftly stripped of whatever delusions they had about their chances once the fight begins. Over time, that confidence is eventually restored as you begin to react to and counterattack his vicious and relentless assault, but it's a long and tough journey to that point. Thankfully, just like the feeling you get when you discover a new path that unlocks more of the map, it's empowering to see yourself survive longer each attempt as you slowly recognize his patterns and develop your combat skills in real time. It takes a large effort, but ultimately results in you coming out of the fight as a stronger, sharper, more equipped vessel than before. What I appreciate about this fight, and all of the Dream battles for that matter, is how they expand on the foundation of the first fight in an organic way. Rather than giving the bosses all new abilities, most of the attacks are just modified versions of the original. Nightmare King Grimm is fierce, erratic, powerful, and fast, surpassing his Troopmaster counterpart in every conceivable way. His attacks have larger hitboxes that do more damage, his projectiles come out faster and there are more of them, and healing is almost never an option while in the midst of combat. From the very beginning of the battle, you are fighting for your life, being bombarded with a flurry of attacks that can catch you off guard, and that give you little to no breathing room. The unrelenting nature of this combat forces you to adapt quickly and focus your attention solely on the task at hand, as this harassment continues until the fight ends. I think it's important to reiterate that this is a satisfying challenge and not something that feels unfair. Absolute Radiance, for example, while arguably harder than the Nightmare King and Pure Vessel, feels frustratingly difficult, akin to a Kaizo Mario World level. Its overwhelming and suffocating nature feels almost gimmicky, with the real challenge stemming from fatigue and the fear of having to repeat the Pantheon of the Hallownest from the beginning if you fail. This stress causes you to panic more easily, which in turn makes it more difficult to stay composed and react to the barrage of projectiles being thrown at you. On the contrary, you have peace of mind when fighting the Nightmare King Grimm because you know you will respawn just outside the fight's entrance if you die, allowing you to easily reach the boss again for many attempts. Additionally, the Nightmare King only sends out one move at a time, stopping his attacks from feeling cheap despite their dramatic increase in speed and power. This makes it feel like a fair fight and consequently makes it much less annoying when you die. And the gratification of finally defeating the Nightmare King is second to none in the game and a far greater pleasure than the relief felt when defeating a boss that feels unfair. This is because no fight feels as exhilarating or intense as the one against Grimm does. Something I love about the Sisters of Battle is how it feels like they actively want to kill you, which I feel wholeheartedly with Grimm. In a way, it helps the fight feel more personal, which adds a layer of intensity that a boss like Umu or the Dung Defender lack, despite their chaotically frantic battles. It's fitting that this demon-looking nightmare god wouldn't be nonchalant about wanting to kill you, and the wild, violent nature of his attacks only serve to complement his evil persona. While there are many bosses in Hollow Knight, very few require the level of concentration needed to get past the Nightmare King Grimm, which creates arguably the most immersive atmosphere of any fight in the game. The difficulty is ramped up to a point that you must solely focus on the task at hand. As a result, it's hard not to get wrapped up in the obvious bloodlust coming from this divine creature, as the gothic environment, music track, and constant heartbeat create a palpable tension that can be felt from the moment you enter the Nightmare Realm. It doesn't help that Grimm immediately begins to teleport around, making guttural, demonic noises that sound like he's saying the word Satan. It's intimidating, just as is his entrance, where he forcibly rips himself out of the Nightmare Heart. This is where the Nightmare King Grimm really separates himself from the other bosses in Hollow Knight. Though many of the fantastic bosses in this game have elements that are worthy of praise, none tie them all together in a way that Grimm does here. Again, only the Pure Vessel, who is easily my second favorite boss in Hollow Knight, creates an atmosphere comparable to the Nightmare King. Grimm's astonishing power and presence make me want to learn more about not only him as a character, but his troupe and the Nightmare Realm as well. He's a boss that is equal parts intriguing and intimidating, and deserves praise for making me want more content in order to explore the lore surrounding him. Admittedly, I am a little biased, as the Nightmare King was in fact the entire reason that I decided to play Hollow Knight in the first place. When I saw him being fought for the first time, I was enthralled by the challenge and atmosphere presented. I immediately fell in love with Grimm's theme, and think it's one of the best boss fight tracks in any video game. And I also just genuinely enjoyed his design and thought he looked extremely badass. Nightmare King Grimm is basically a dictionary example of how to do a boss fight right, and as I stated earlier, I love nothing in gaming more than a good boss battle. All that being said, Hollow Knight creates such a deeply personal experience that I can easily see people enjoying other bosses more. While I think the Nightmare King Grimm is the best, there are plenty of other fights I really enjoy. As I mentioned before, I love the Sisters of Battle, and the Mantis Lords in general for their aesthetic and flashy fight. Similarly, the Enraged Guardian has an awesome looking arena for his fight, and despite being easy to take down, has some cool looking attacks. And the Watcher Knights also stand out due to their unique nature and fun gameplay. Perhaps one day I'll do a ranking of some of Hollow Knight's bosses, but I doubt I'll ever like a boss as much as I liked the Nightmare King Grimm. Whether it's his heavy soundtrack, wicked atmosphere, or memorable challenge, he stands out as one of the best aspects of one of the best games released in the past 10 years. He's just as fun to fight now as he was the first time, and if you ever wanted to test your skills as a gamer, he's the boss to go up against. And if Hollow Knight's Silksong can deliver action like what is found here, I'll know the series is headed in the right direction. Thanks for watching.